Hello, I'm Nadia Adamson, and you are watching Marshall Close Up. Join me in welcoming Mr. Trent Okerson to Marshall County High School. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So, I heard that you had a bit of a crazy start at WPSD. Tell me about your first week.
Yeah, so I started in October of 2007, and within my very first week, we had the largest October tornado outbreak on record in the state of Kentucky. So within my first week or so on the job, thrown into the fire with several tornadoes in the area, and definitely an interesting way to start my career. Yeah.
So I know you had a crazy start, but what does a typical workday look like for you?
So I'm the morning and midday meteorologist. My day starts really early. I typically get into work at around 4:15 a.m. And I am on TV for the first time at around 4:40 in the morning. We have a 2.5-hour morning show. From 5 to 7, we do what's called Weather on the Sixes. So I actually have about a 2.5 minute weather hit that runs at 5:06, 16, 26. So I'm on every 10 minutes for 2 hours straight. That makes for a fairly hectic start to the day, but it kind of gets the ball rolling, get a cup of coffee in there, and you kind of get going. We have updates throughout the Today Show, which runs from 7 to 9:30, and then I'll come back and do the midday newscast at 12 o'clock.
Okay, it seems like Kentucky's weather changes so fast. How do you manage to keep up?
Well, we just we try to stay one step ahead. Forecasting is really the most important part of our job. Every day, multiple times a day, we take a look at forecast models. We'll check in with the National Weather Service. They have a discussion they'll put out a couple of times a day that tells us what they think is going to be happening. And of course, we use our own forecasting knowledge and skills to just stay ahead. We can look out, as much as a week and a half in advance and see, big picture, what the general forecast looks like, if there's going to be stormy weather or things are going to be calm and quiet. If there is the potential for thunderstorms, winter weather, something like that, we just check that multiple times a day to see how forecast models are, if they're consistent, if there's differences. We kind of see how those trends look over time. And our job is to take all that complicated weather information, all that complicated science, and package that into something that's really easy for folks to plan their activities with. And so it's really important for us to make sure that we stay ahead of the game to communicate that to folks.
Yeah, what has been your most memorable moment while working with WPSD?
Without a doubt, it was the December 10th tornado outbreak. We've had a lot of major weather events since I've been there for almost 15 years. I've covered the ice storm in 2009, historic river flooding in 2011, a number of different tornado outbreaks, winter storms, but nothing comes close to comparing to that event.
So you mentioned the December 10th tornado. Was that one of the biggest challenges you faced while working, or is there something else?
That was definitely, it was challenging from the aspect that it was hard to maintain your composure and emotions in that one. Because more than any other event that we've had while I've been there, we knew from what we saw on radar that this was going to have a massive impact on people, that there were going to be people that lost their homes, their lives were going to be turned upside down that night, and there wasn't anything we could do. It was a very helpless feeling. And this is our community, this is our home. We all knew people that were in the path of that tornado, and so we care about what was happening to them. And so it was really challenging to stay calm, to stay focused, to make sure that we told people with urgency, how bad this was going to be, but we also didn't want to scare people because we wanted them to have their ability to stay calm, put their action plan into action so that they could stay safe. But yeah, that was really an emotionally trying night for us.
So what was that day like for you and your kind of experience going about that?
Well, again, we've had multiple tornado outbreaks around our area. This was nothing new in that regard. You know, in the days leading up to that, we knew that all of the signs were there for, you know, potentially a major tornado. Even in the 3-4 days ahead of time, just some of the things we were looking at in the forecast models were as bad or worse than I had ever seen them as far as the severe weather parameters, things that we look at behind the scenes. And especially the day before, we knew, you know, this has the potential to be a really bad day. That morning, all the signs were still there, and whenever we kind of got into the afternoon hours that day, we just kind of had to mentally prepare ourselves for the fact we were probably going to be on TV for a few hours covering some bad storms. We tried to do the best we could ahead of time to let people know, you know, this is really an important day, to make sure that you've got ways to get warnings. Stay weather aware. It's a Friday night. People are going to have plans, going out to ball games, you know, movies, whatever they had going on. Just make sure that you've got a way to get those warnings and know where to go in case something happens in your neighborhood.
Did reporting on the tornado have any physical effects on your body, like fatigue or mental effects?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was actually kind of sick the day of the tornado. I had a cold or something, and really just didn't feel great myself that day. And we were on air continuously for 5.5 hours with no break. So that was definitely taxing physically, you know, not feeling well. And actually, I had been up since 3:45 that morning, so that was challenging. But the middle part was tough, you know, because you have to, with severe weather, everything is on the fly. There's no script. Weather is always ad lib, but typically when we have a 2.5-3 minute weathercast, we kind of know what we're going to talk about. We set our graphics out ahead of time. Know, you know, we're going to go in this order. With severe weather, it's completely on the fly. You're just reporting what you see as you see it, and so that really gets to be a lot to juggle mentally, because that night we had multiple storms to cover as well. We had the monster storm that went through Mayfield and Benton, but there was also another tornado that was in Tennessee. There were tornado warnings in southern Illinois, and so we're trying to juggle all of this at the same time. And on top of all of that, about halfway through that night, the National Weather Service office in Paducah lost power and their generator went out. So we lost radar and communications with them, and we had to kind of on the fly go to other radar sites, use that data and that information to try to piece together what in the world was happening with all of this. And so that was mentally exhausting. There was just so much to keep up with that night. Mm-hmm. And then of course, just like I said, the emotional part, knowing, you know, you feel so bad for folks that are going to be so heavily impacted by this. And we tried to, there were a couple of times, both myself and Noah, that we both kind of started to crack a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, I actually got choked up a couple of times. And so you just had to kind of take a step back, take a breath, remember that we've got a job to do, and we can, you know, deal with our own mental part of it after the fact.
So I know that you were reporting that this is the worst tornado this side of the state had seen, mm-hmm. but seeing the aftermath of the tornado, was it what you had expected?
You know, I don't know that there's any way that you can prepare for seeing the effects of a high-end EF4 tornado. I mean, this was about as strong of a tornado as you can get. It was, peak winds were 190 miles per hour, and an EF5 is 200 miles per hour. So it was that close to being at the top of the scale. Yeah, it was just, you know, I've never seen destruction on that level before, especially in the Mayfield area, and then just north of Benton. It was just pretty indescribable.
After everything that our community has been through with the recent tornado, lots of snow, and even going back to the ice storm of 2009, how do you manage to keep reporting knowing that tragedy could strike at any moment?
Well, you know, we just, our job is to save lives. When our news director, my boss, took over 3 years ago, he asked each of us, what did you do for a job? And my first answer was, well, I'm a meteorologist, I forecast the weather. And he said, no, you save lives. How do you do that? You track storms. And that night was really when that became real for us, because we've had so many messages, emails, phone calls, people that have said, you know, we saw on your face and we heard in your voice how serious you were about how bad the storm was, and that spurred us to take action. And had we not left our mobile home or went to our basement, we might not be here. And so as sad as it is to see something like that happen, it drives us to keep going, knowing that we could possibly help save a life, protect property, things like that.
Is the weather of the, is the atmosphere of the weather department station any different than it was before the tornado? Like, do people act differently, or?
Yeah, you know, we've always taken our job seriously, but just after that one, again, it was just, it was so real, the impact that we can have on, you know, helping people out, that I think we take it a little more seriously now. Not that we didn't before that, but it just, you know, that storm really just made such a personal impact on all of us.
Okay, going back on a lighter note, what are some goals that you hope to achieve in the future when forecasting the weather?
Goodness, I mean, our main goal is just to always be as accurate as possible. In the 15 years that I've been there, technology has improved so much. It's not perfect. It's never going to be a perfect science, but I feel like we've come such a long way in being more accurate, and then also having more tools to show people, you know, what's going to happen, to explain things better. You know, one of the main things that we try to work for is to educate people on, you know, why does the weather do what it does, help them to understand the science behind it, and then also help them to understand better ways to prepare for whatever is to come.
Do you plan on staying in this area forecasting the weather, or do you see yourself forecasting at other stations, or maybe moving on to another market?
I will probably stay here. I'm from Metropolis, and Paducah's been home for 12, 13 years now. I grew up watching WPSD, so it's my home station. I really don't have any plans to go anywhere else. I mean, I love this area, I love our people, so hopefully you'll be seeing me for a long time.
And one thing that I have learned off camera about you is that you are an avid Cardinals fan. And I know that you've seen many games. What has been one of your favorite moments while watching the Cardinals?
Oh, goodness. I was lucky enough to be at Game 7 of the 2011 World Series when they won. That was probably the coolest thing sports-wise that I've seen. I got to go to the All-Star game in 2009. I was there in 2004 when there was a walk-off home run in the playoffs. So seen a lot of cool baseball moments, and I'm ready for baseball to come back too.
Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today.
Sure.
We appreciate your commitment to the weather and for everything that you do for this community. Goodbye, and we'll see you next time on Marshall Close Up.